Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Michele Pfannenstiel, and I'm the CEO of Dirigo Food Safety, and I'm coming to you this week with the first in a 12-part series of the very most important standard operating procedures and policies you can put in place to help protect your food business. We're going to start this series, which we're going to be doing for the whole of Q2 2018, with recalls. Okay, recall probably strikes fear into the hearts of every food entrepreneur, and they are not fun. I'm not going to lie, but recalls are survivable. We've done some other presentations on how to approach recalls and what to think about it. This is the next, I guess, kind of in that series, and we're talking about the very nitty-gritty of actually surviving the recall and doing what you need to do in the recall, because we've already assuming that you are thinking a more empowering thought, and you know that if you're in recall, this is kind of what you got to do. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So, we're bringing this info to you as part of a series because we're really invested in creating vibrant regional economies here based on food, and we can only do that if you guys have the information that you need at your fingertips so that you can run your business. If you're interested in getting a recall SOP, we find recall so important we give the SOPs away. Please give us a call at 207-517-3920, or feel free to drop us a line at info@dirigofoodsafety.com, and we will push that back out to you. Okay, so here's what happens when we have a recall. So what's going to happen is you are either going to get a customer complaint, you're going to get notified by a state Department of Agriculture, a state CDC, the FDA, the USDA, some regulatory authority is going to come to you most times and tell you that somebody got sick from your food. They took a sample of your food and they found that it had some microbe in it or some chemical, or they looked at a label and found that your product has allergens in it and you didn't declare it on the label, or your product doesn't have allergens in it and you declared it on the label. So I will tell you at the outset that 75% of recalls in America are because of allergen labeling problems, and the very best thing that you can do if you have allergens in your food is to ensure accurate allergen control. Now, in a couple of weeks, kind of towards the maybe middle of the quarter, we're going to be doing one of these office hours totally on allergen control and how allergen control works. All right, and so that's really, we would like to prevent a recall, no doubt. And this whole entire series, everything I talk about HACCP and preventive controls, is designed around preventing a recall. But sometimes the worst happens, and a recall is not the worst thing happening. Somebody getting sick or dying from your food is the worst thing happening. And so let's go through how we deal with it when a recall comes through. So the very first thing that you're going to need to do, okay, is you need to form your recall team. Now, if you are under a HACCP system or you're under a preventive control system, you should already have this team in place, okay? If you don't worry about it, but that is the very first thing that you need to do. Who in your company is going to be responsible for discussing and making decisions, okay? It should definitely be the owner. It absolutely has to be somebody from finance. It's probably somebody in operations, okay? And then I'm happy to be on your recall team. By then you will have called me for help with the recall, I imagine. And then you need, I would recommend having both a food safety lawyer, and we can recommend one if you'd like, and corporate counsel. It's incredibly important that you have corporate counsel, because often the fallout of the recall has to do with your supply chain or with litigation from people who have gotten sick from your product, and you need corporate counsel for that. Okay, so once you have been notified about a lot that's contaminated, or somebody's gotten sick from your product or that sort of thing, you have to do what's called a health hazards assessment, okay? And your health hazard assessment says, What went wrong, and what's the effect on the public health? Can people die from this? Will they just get sick from it? Who's potentially affected? Do you sell to school children in the school lunch program, elderly people in an old age home, anything like that? Those are, you have to identify your more vulnerable populations, and you should have, of course, started with this when you started your food safety planning and you identified your intended consumer of your food. Your health hazard assessment needs to take into account that consumer of the food. Now, if the person who has gotten sick is outside the realm of that intended consumer, somewhere something happened and you didn't identify your intended consumer correctly, and now we have to fix that. Okay. At this point, what you need to be doing is taking really, really good notes in the form of a corrective action record that will allow you to do a root cause analysis. All right. So you are going to do that health hazard assessment. You're going to write down your health hazard assessment. What's, part of your health hazard assessment is if there's a microbe involved, what happens when people ingest that microbe and get sick? How do people get sick, and what are the vulnerable populations because of your food, also potentially identified by your intended consumer. Once you have that information, okay, we do what's called a recall decision. You make a go, no go decision. All right, you are either going to do a recall or you are not going to do a recall. Okay, if the authorities are coming and telling you need to do a voluntary recall, it's very, very hard to get out of doing that. And you can make it voluntary, or for the first time in history today, the FDA announced a mandatory recall of a supplement product. This is the first time they've used their mandatory recall authority, and they used it on a outfit out west. Okay, know that the FDA can mandatorily recall you. The USDA cannot mandatorily recall you, but they can do a lot of things to damage your business and make sure people don't eat food they consider adulterated. All right, and so if the authorities are talking to you and asking you about a recall, in all likelihood you're going to have to recall, and if you don't, there will be other effects associated with that. Okay, so we do our recall decision. Once we've made our recall decision here, okay, then we have to work on what we have notifications. If you could read that back there. We create notifications, we write letters, we write press releases, and we get in touch with the authorities that are responsible for those, keeping track of what recalls are going on where. So the FDA has recall coordinators, the USDA has recall coordinators, every state has a recall coordinator. Okay. It's really important that you know who these people are so that you can contact them. And they expect to be updated very frequently about the recalls. All right? So we notify them, we get press releases out, and we create a list of what's called consignees. That is everybody who bought your food. All right? At the same time we are doing that, other people on your recall team are creating a list of all the products of that lot number and the lot numbers of any potentially affected products so that you can match up what you produced to who you sold it to, okay, and how much. Because what you have to do is you have to do what we call recall accounting. And you have to match up, I sold, 20 tons of sausage to ABC retailer, and then ABC retailer has to acknowledge receipt that they received 20 tons, and they've done what with it? They've sold 15 tons of it, and they still have 5 tons of it. They've processed and sold all 20 tons of it, whatever it is that you're talking about. Okay, you have to be able to find out where all of that product is. You must also make a decision about whether or not they are going to hold it there at the retail location or they're going to send it back to you. The conservative decision is that you are going to get it back and you are going to reimburse them for the costs associated and all that sort of stuff. That's why we need corporate counsel on the recall team, because you need to be making those decisions with finance and corporate counsel. Next, if you are getting food back, you have to determine where that food's going to go. Okay, you can't bring that food back into your food production facility. So you need to go find a warehouse with lots of big tags that say QA hold, recalled material, and you must keep it there because you can't get rid of it until your authority, the FDA, the USDA, the State Department of Agriculture, or whomever, tells you you can get rid of it, all right? And they generally have to document that destruction. you have to do that recall accounting and report it to your authority every single day. Okay, so if you are recalling 1,000 pounds of breads and you sold it to 5 different people, okay, so each consignee got 200 pounds. At the end of the first day, you have to report how many pounds you have accounted for. At the end of the second day, you have to report how many pounds you have accounted for. And those reports are due to your recall authority by the end of the day. Okay? By keeping together that information, you can get a really good feeling about how much risk to your company is out there. And those are the steps of doing a recall, and you do them over and over and over and over again until you find all of your product, or you think all of it has either been consumed or removed from the marketplace. Okay. Now, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to wait for a recall for that to happen. I recommend that people do mock recalls twice a year, no matter how big you are or how small. Okay. In the top of the year, so in the first 6 months of the year, I would do a recall over something happening in your supply chain, whereby you get one of your products that you get is recalled, and you are notified that it has something in it, and now you have to go out and recall it. All right, do that in the top of the year. In the bottom of the year, I would do a recall where you had a food defense breakthrough. Okay, somebody intentionally tampered with your food. You had an economically motivated adulteration problem, or some other problem with an employee, or somebody or a person like touching your food, like a distributor or something like that. Okay, get used to talking about these sorts of scenarios with your food safety team, and you'll be able to react more quickly to a live fire exercise, okay? And the quicker you can react and the more responsive you can be to the FDA or the USDA, the faster this will all get done with, okay? And that's what we're working on, is getting this done as fast as we can. So I'm Dr. Michele Pfannenstiel. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for listening to our Dirigo Food Safety Office Hours. It's been a delight, and we'll see you next week. And I think next week we are talking about specifications. What do you make? Let's talk about how to write specs. So we look forward to it. We look forward to seeing you throughout all of these conversations over the course of Q2 2018. Thanks so much. Have a great day.